Welcome to It's Upgrade Season, the only place to get raw and unfiltered advice on how to get your shit together 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Alexandria, and join me every Monday for The Upgrade and every Friday for The Wind Down, where I'm going to be answering your dilemmas. Small shifts, huge upgrades. Let's fucking do this. Hello and welcome back. I thought I would drop in with a little bit of a personal update before we go into today's episode, which is all about the 7 types of rest, which is a principle which has completely blown my mind because it has been a whirlwind couple of weeks. We've been in Sedona, we have been in LA, which I fell back in love with. I used to spend a lot of time in LA before I had Leo, so I actually felt really emotional about this trip. And I said this to Jake, it felt like a real reclaiming of some of my life that I had prior to the sickness and prior to having Leo in a really beautiful way. And we actually had the best time as a family there. We had so much fun. I feel like I've made so many memories with Leo, and he's at a really fun age at the moment. He's 18 months. He's starting to say words. He's really playful. He's really smiley. He's really cheeky, really adventurous, loves making friends. He's fist pumping everyone at the moment is his new thing. And just been having so much fun with him. And it was slightly crazy. We had our 2 dogs with us as well. So it was quite the experience. I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'd travel with the dogs again. The dogs were really quite an additional sensory experience, which we'll talk a little bit about in today's episode. But it was really amazing, and it was really incredible to just get to catch up with friends in LA as well and have that deep one-on-one time and connection time as well that I don't necessarily get. When you live as an expat, you obviously miss the people you love, and that time where you get to really drop in with them is just so precious. So had a really beautiful time there. I think one of the highlights in LA was definitely doing a little Nobu dinner. So the Nobu Malibu there is literally one of my favorite places. It's beachfront. If you get there around 4, 5, sometimes early 6 p.m, they'll actually give you one of the tables, which is like right waterfront. The water literally comes underneath you. It's so stunning. You can see up and down the coast. And the food there, you guys, is so good. I've been to other Nobus and they haven't been as good, but the Nobu Malibu is chef's kiss, insane. Had the most incredible meal. Me and Jake went, had a really romantic time, and got a bowl of Runart, my favorite, which is always a way to my heart. But I actually did something there, which is why I also wanted to share this, which really upgraded our date experience. And I wanted to share it because I think it's something that you can maybe weave into your next date night. So when we got there, I'd actually had a bit of a weird day in that we was going to have a podcast, and basically the studio ghosted us. It was very strange. We made it work. So we ended up at dinner last minute, and I was just feeling a bit like mentally frazzled from that situation. So we got there and I was like, do you know what, babe? You know what I like to eat. You know what I like to drink. Would you mind if I just like didn't look at the menu, didn't look at anything, and you just ordered for us? Jake was like, of course, I love doing this. He loves ordering. And it was amazing. He picked the Runart, spot on. He picked all the dishes. And honestly, it was such a relaxing experience. I just got to be so present, relax and enjoy it, and just trust and lean into him. And it was really beautiful. So next date night, highly recommend handing it over to your partner and just letting them decide what you're eating, decide what you're drinking. I know there's probably some people thinking, God, that sounds so fucking old fashioned, but honestly, it was so nice not having to make a decision for the evening, and I absolutely loved it. So highly recommend. I'm recording this currently in London. We've been spending some time here to see family, which again has been really magical, and a lot of them getting quality time with Leo, which again is just so beautiful to experience. I am fucking exhausted at this point, I'll be real though. Jet lag has been kicking my ass. I never used to get jet lag, but Leo gets jet lagged, and what tends to happen is I'll get him back to sleep and then I'm lying there awake. But the plus side of my jet lag is, in one of my many nights lying awake till 3 a.m, is I finished A Court of Thorn and Rosings, ACOTAR. Guys, I loved it. Everyone said book 1's boring. I was gripped, like fully gripped, you guys. I actually have a soft spot for that kind of fiction, I think. I think that kind of fantasy, romance, guys, I was lapping it up. But the only downside is I put book 2, I left it in America. I thought, oh, I won't get through that many books. And I haven't, but I did get through that. So wish I bought book 2 with me, but I've got something to look forward to when I get back to America. And it did mean that I got to do a really good Waterstones binge. I'm sorry, but the bookshops in England just hit different to America. American bookshops, yeah, okay. I was really happy to get to Barnes and Noble in the Grove in LA. That is always a highlight. But yeah, English bookshops just hit so differently. Really excited to get to Waterstones. I had a nice big book binge, got a load of books, got some really cute ones for Leo as well. One was called The Worrysaurus, which is my new favorite. It's super cute about not worrying about life and just being in the present. So I got to have a good book binge. And yeah, from here on out, the rest of the trip's a lot more chill, which I'm super excited for. I say that. We fly to Ibiza on Friday. So it's mine and Jake's 6th wedding anniversary. He'll be so proud I remembered what year. I am like the boy in our relationship. I always forget what year we're on. But we are celebrating 6 years and my parents are going to very kindly look after Leo, get some quality time with him, and we are going to get some quality couple time in Ibiza. We've booked the Six Senses, which I've not stayed at before, but I've heard amazing things about. And they have this amazing wellness program. I think it's going to be a little bit of fun, a little bit of play, and it's going to be deep sleep, chill out time. Jake's got like a surprise day planned for us, which is super exciting. I have no idea what he's planned. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. And then we go back to the US via Mexico City. So we've got a couple of days in Mexico City, which I'm hoping will mean we can gently acclimatize to the time zone change, aka Leo's going to be up from 2:30 in the morning and we're just going to roll with it. So we've still got some of the trip left, which is super exciting. So getting into today's episode, I wanted to talk to you about the 7 types of rest. This is a principle that has absolutely blown my mind. And the reason it's blown my mind is because I got into a period with Leo where he was actually sleeping really well, but I was feeling exhausted still. I still didn't feel replenished, or I would say replenished or nourished are the words that I was aiming to feel, and I wasn't feeling that way. And when I discovered the 7 types of rest, I really recognized why I was feeling that way. And I could also make sense of so many experiences of burnout previously in my life and why I felt that way. So I always like to give credit to where credit's due. This comes from Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. I'll always give credit where credit's due, but can't guarantee I've pronounced it properly. And it's from her book, Sacred Rest, but I actually read this through an article from Calm. Absolutely love their app. So it's this principles of 7 types of rest. And I'm going to run you through each type of rest and why they're so powerful. So the 7 types of rest are physical rest. We know that's things like sleeping, like gentle restorative movement, like physical rest, we know. And it's often actually... yes, one where we miss out on, but the simplest one to fix, I think personally. Like, just go to fucking bed earlier. And I'm sorry, if you don't have kids, you really have no excuse. Go to fucking bed earlier, get up a bit later if possible. And even with kids, honestly, the way that we got rest is we go to bed earlier. And we did gentle sleep training, all hail Cara babies. But physical rest, we tend to know about. There's also, though, mental rest, emotional rest, sensory rest, creative rest, social rest, and spiritual rest. So I'm going to start with sensory rest. And sensory rest is thinking about the sensory overload that we experience every day. And particularly having a toddler, let me tell you, there is sensory overload. Can you imagine what it was like with Coco, who is a barking dog, and then Bagel, who starts barking because Coco's barking, and then Leo? Complete sensory overload is my life on a day-to-day basis. We have dogs, I have a toddler, there's a lot going on. We've also had building work recently, just like so much drilling and noise from that. But even in our day-to-day life, we experience a lot of sensory overload. For example, our phone, if our phone is constantly pinging, bright lights, loud noises, screens, there is so much around us. I really remember when Jake went on his, I can't remember what they call it, but he went and fasted in the desert for 5 days in Death Valley. When he came back into life, you come back into Las Vegas because that's the closest place to Death Valley. He was like, Alex, I could not believe the sensory overload. That you don't realize how many screens and adverts and lights and things you're being bombarded by until you've literally been in the desert. He literally had no tent, you guys. He was in the desert just with nature, completely isolated for 5 days fasting, and then you come back into somewhere like Las Vegas. Like, I can't even imagine. So how do we get some sensory rest? I know that I definitely need sensory rest in my life. It really impacts me. And I feel like signs of overload are difficulty concentrating. That's one that I really notice in myself when I've had sensory overload. I find it really difficult to concentrate. headaches from screens, just being quite irritable as well. I feel like it makes us feel so scattered that we can get quite irritable from it. So how do we reduce the sensory exposure? Things like reducing bright lights, reducing loud noises, and reducing digital screens. So how do you practically go about that? One of the things that I love to do is inspired from the retreat house that we use in Tulum, one of the most magical locations in the world. And at this retreat, and I'm talking about the exact house itself, not just Tulum, because at the house at night, there are no artificial lights. They light the house by candle. And I tell you, there are hundreds of candles. It's the most magical experience. But the first time I experienced this, I noticed something in myself that my whole body relaxed. And I felt so soothed and so peaceful. And I had the deepest night's sleep. And that's something a lot of the women say at that retreat. They have the best, most restorative sleep they've had. And I think a lot of it is because there isn't a sensory overload. At night, we have dinner together around a dinner table. We have the candlelit surroundings that obviously aren't screens. And I think that sensory rest is just so restorative and nurturing that then when we go into physical rest, it's so much deeper as well. I've really tried to weave this in back at home, having things like lamps, having candles, really focusing on dimmer lighting in the evening. We've put like dimmable lights on all our lights, which by the way, I fucking hated at the time, but I love now. Basically, we got into the house and it was so unfinished and Jake went and replaced every working light bulb with another working light bulb. And I could not fathom why he was doing that. But now I will admit, when he dims the lights and it's nice sensory, low sensory lighting, I'm very thankful to him. You can also change the colors on them. So that is an option, by the way, in your house. They're smart light bulbs rather than changing the whole system. So you can change the colors to like red light and things like this. I highly recommend. And we also use them for Leo in his room, which is great. So like if we do nighttime bath time, we do like a red light. So it's not as sensory overload. Anyway, caveat about smart lights. Jake will be buzzing that I now like them. Just think about ways that you can reduce that sensory overload. Turn your notifications off or put your phone on airplane mode. Put your phone away somewhere. And also reducing loud noises. That could look like something like not maybe watching an action film or the latest crime drama on Netflix in the evening. Really starting just to tune down the noise on that. You can also get like noise cancelling headphones, or there's those like loop things that I see. The full transparency, I just see influencers repping them on Instagram. So I don't know if they're good, but you can get these like loop things which reduce sensory stimulation, which I definitely want to try. So really thinking about sensory rest. And as I go through these sections, start to think about which ones are you craving? Which ones do you think you need so you can feel more nurtured, nourished, and restored? The second type is mental rest. So this is around giving the brain a break from overthinking and problem solving. So our brains are constantly, particularly as entrepreneurs, constantly problem solving, constantly thinking. And if you've ever had anxiety or anything like that, OCD, ADHD, like you're used to the overthinking cycle, and it's fucking exhausting. It is so fucking exhausting. So we want to reduce that mental load and give ourselves some mental rest. And there's a number of ways that we can do this. So the first one, setting healthy work boundaries, setting a switch off time and sticking to it. There is always going to be more shit to be done on your to-do list. Trust me on that. Okay. But just like knowing when enough is enough and knowing that actually mental rest is going to allow you to come back so much fresher. I remember learning about decision making when I was studying positive psychology, and it's like a muscle, and we exhaust that muscle with our decision making. So by the end of the day, you're not even making good decisions. You're not even solving problems in a good way when your muscle is exhausted. You really want to make sure that you're giving yourself time for mental rest. You can also do more mindful activities. So something I've incorporated, which I absolutely love, is I'm doing my tarot coloring book. You probably see me share it on Instagram, but I'm loving that. I've really wanted to learn the tarot. It's a hobby. It feels like mental rest, and I get to explore the tarot and I get to color in, and honestly it just helps my brain switch off and is so relaxing. Another form of mental rest I think can be really helpful is simplifying your life. Okay, so I feel like we have so much shit around us all the time, to be honest. Like if you go in your drawer and it's cluttered, or you've got all your clothes or whatever it may be, you're constantly decision making. Start to think how you can cut down some of those decisions. Invite more simplicity into your life. Clear out that drawer that's full of clutter. have a work uniform. Steve Jobs didn't have it completely wrong when he just wore the same things every day. I personally have a ton of Lululemon leggings and a ton of Skims t-shirts. And in general, they will just be my day-to-day uniform. So I'm not using brain power on what I'm wearing. There are other times where I do want to express myself or embody something or feel something different. So I do think about what I'm wearing and I create an outfit and it's really fun and it's really playful. But trust me, I wouldn't enjoy doing that shit every day, okay? So make things simple. And you can also do that with other things like your meals. Like I batch cook meals and I just have it in the freezer. So I'm not constantly having to think about or make a decision what's for dinner, what's in the fridge. I just know there's something there and there's something ready for me. I do that for Leo as well. You might have seen my new Instagram, Things My Baby Eats, which, full transparency, guys, I got fucking locked out of. I had to get my phone fixed. And as part of fixing my phone, they replaced my phone. And because of that, I had to log back into everything and I can't log back in right now. So I will be back on there. But batch cooking, not having to decide what you're eating, just clearing some of that mental load so you've actually got time for more mental rest. The next type of rest that I want to talk about is emotional rest. So this is all about being authentic and sharing your inner experience with others. I am a huge fan of therapy. I think therapy to me is my emotional rest. Have an hour of therapy a week, and I just know in that time I get to share truly how I'm feeling with no judgment, and just really allow it to pour out and be held and witnessed and supported in that space. And that feels so nourishing and restorative too. We had a really hectic time first getting to the UK. There was just a lot on, a lot of celebrations, a lot of seeing family. And on the Monday, it felt really hard for me, which is when I had my therapy. It felt really hard for me to make that time. And I ended up sat in a Tesco car park. Jake took Leo around Tesco and I sat in a Tesco car park for an hour having that therapy session. And I'm so glad I did because I felt so much better afterwards and I had so much more to pour into other people. It really filled my cup. So I personally think therapy can be a great form of emotional rest. But if you're not in therapy or you want something that's a little bit like lower commitment or lower cost, there's so many ways you can do this. Journaling is a fantastic way of getting emotional rest. I'm a big fan of morning pages where you just pour out whatever's on your mind for, I think it's 3 pages. Can't remember the exact practice, but something like 3 minutes or 3 pages. You just allow everything to pour out without filtering. Really great way of getting that emotional rest. But also with your partner, a practice or a friend. A practice me and Jake have been doing is, it's actually a sanctuary ritual that we got introduced to through the Layla Martin Tantric Mastermind that we're in. But part of it is just like sharing what we're afraid of and sharing what's on our hearts and just sharing from a really true place, uninterrupted for a number of minutes. And it's so interesting because I feel like me and Jake are very honest with each other. I feel like it's part of what makes our relationship so strong. I'll be honest, I get slightly baffled when people are like, they're like telling their friends something, but they haven't told their partner, or they're saying they want something, but they feel that they can't tell their partner. We literally just lay it fucking out there. I feel like we have a really honest relationship, and I realize there's always a greater level of intimacy when we just sit uninterrupted with each other, facing each other, and allow each other to express. Because often you're expressing, but the conversation's cut short, or you're with your child, or you're cooking, or you're doing something else at the same time, or there's always like a limit on it. Whereas doing it in that way just feels really beautiful and really freeing. So you can actually bring in a practice with your partner or with a friend where you just say, hey, would you be open to me sharing uninterrupted for, let's say, 7 minutes? And then I can do the same for you as well. I'd love for you to be shared and witnessed in that sharing for a period of time as well. That can be so, so nourishing. I think a really important thing to bear in mind with emotional rest as well is if you're in emotionally draining situations, give yourself a break, give yourself time to step away. I had some really intensely emotional situations happening a couple of months ago now, and I had to keep advocating for myself in that I needed a break, or I needed to step away, or I needed rest. I needed to replenish myself in order to go back into that situation, to go back into those conversations, to be able to express myself in a healthy way, not in a way that was from an empty cup. So also worth thinking in terms of if you do have some intense situations going on, if you're navigating something like I've had someone close to me navigating divorce, like something like that, giving yourself periods of rest from those emotions, giving yourself a break from those emotions, before going back into it can be really restorative. The next type of rest that I'm going to talk about is creative rest. This really involves giving the mind a break to allow creativity to regenerate. And I am a big fan of creative rest. It is definitely something that I have worked on because there's been times in my life where I feel like I cannot access creativity, and that is a real sign to me. And I know now, particularly knowing the rest types, that I need creative rest. Think of a really practical example for you is if you are trying to write an Instagram post and you can't think of anything to write, you need some creative rest, babe. If you are trying to create a podcast episode and you can't think of anything, you need some creative rest, okay? This is the act of doing something that feels regenerative to your creativity. And what I really encourage you to do here is find this in one of two ways. So one can be in nature is so powerful and so healing, and nature really speaks to us as well. So getting out into nature, soaking up the nature, feeling the energy in nature can be a way of really replenishing ourselves and really getting creatively inspired as well. We can actually listen to the silence of nature as well. Nature's never quite silent, but in that we can hear ourselves more clearly. I really think the replenishment of nature is a really beautiful way to get creative rest. I know for me that when I get to Tulum, when I get on holiday and I just sit on the beach and I sit looking at the ocean, looking at the waves or looking up at the jungle leaves, that's one of the times I feel the most creative and the most inspired. Whenever I'm in Tulum, the content just pours out of me. Like it's almost like I can't stop it. Just so much pours out of me. And I know a big part of that is the nature and also the energy there as well. But another way of creative rest is actually engaging in the creativity of others. So this could be books, art, music, theatre, dance, so many different ways. And something I really encourage you to do here is to engage in the creativity of others in a format that you wouldn't normally do or that is different to your own creative avenues. So say, for example, if you are not a painter, you like to write, maybe try going to an art gallery and exploring that as a way of getting creative rest. You're less likely to go into comparison or guilt that you should be doing something. So say, for example, you're a writer and you start reading someone else's book. If you're in a kind of tired place mentally, you will start comparing, oh my God, I'm never going to be a writer like them. Or, oh my gosh, I should be working on my piece of art rather than reading theirs. Whereas if you're in an art gallery, you're not going to feel guilty for not painting. You're going to allow yourself to be truly inspired by the art and the creativity there. And I think this is a big mistake that people often make when they're trying to find creative rest. I'm not saying it always has to be different. I think you can find creative rest in the same avenue as your own expression of creativity. But often if you are tired or burnt out or you really need that restoration, the most rest is going to be found in a different avenue rather than the same. Other avenues could be music, dance as well, and really witnessing art in that way to really restore your own creativity. Another place this has really shown up for me is I actually really enjoy reading fiction. I mentioned reading ACOTAR at the start. I can't believe I'm abbreviating it. Who the fuck do I think I am? I'm not even on TikTok. But reading fiction books has really helped me get that creative rest. I don't get the same creative rest when I read personal development books. I actually don't get the same creative rest anymore when I listen to other people's podcasts because I spend so long podcasting. It sometimes helps if I listen to a different genre. So I really love listening to Call Her Daddy or Table Manners, something like that, which feels more like celebrity interview focus because it feels like a breaking of the niche. But the way that I get the most creative rest is reading fiction or listening to an audiobook, which is a fiction book. You've listened to the podcast and now it's time to upgrade your fucking life, babes, and join me in Tulum for the most transformative 5-day experience of your entire life. Set in a breathtaking beachfront villa in the biosphere of Tulum, this is the Upgrade Season Retreat experience. This all-inclusive retreat is designed to propel you towards your highest potential and support you to upgrade across multiple areas of your life. And we are going to be going fucking deep. Recalibrate your energy, activate your vision, experience powerful Mayan ceremonies, sound baths under the stars. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for those sound baths under the stars, and life-changing workshops with the most spectacular views. And on top of the life-changing workshops that I'll also be guiding you through, you'll be experiencing 5-star dining by the most incredible chefs. It's time for you to escape the chaos of the day-to-day and reconnect to the peace within you. If you're ready to upgrade your entire reality, babe, you need to be joining us on this life-changing experience. We truly haven't had a retreat review yet that hasn't said that these experiences are completely transformative and life-changing. So if you're ready for the next level of you and Tulum is calling you, DM me the word Tulum or head to the show notes where you can find more information. So the next type of rest that I want to talk about is spiritual rest. So spiritual rest is all about connecting with something greater than yourself and doing this through prayer, meditation, or practice of your purpose. I think this is one really worth mentioning because I've really noticed in my own life where I felt spiritually starved at times and where I've needed spiritual rest. And spiritual rest, I've realized, sometimes requires a little bit of motivation. So I don't always necessarily feel particularly motivated to do a breath work or a meditation or go into some kind of ritual. And yet I have noticed when I summon the energy to do that, I feel greater depths of restoration and nourishment afterwards. So it actually has been something that has replenished me. And it's been something that replenishes me, not only in the sense that I feel physical energy, but I feel mental energy, spiritual energy, and connection. I feel like there is a greater sense of trust. I feel like I'm being held. I feel like I'm being supported. And that filters out into the other areas of my life. For example, if I've been in meditation or ritual, say I did a new moon ritual or a full moon ritual, if I've done that, I go to bed that evening feeling so much more rested, so much more calm, so much more in trust. I then get better physical rest. I then feel clearer mentally. I don't feel as overwhelmed or as consumed by decision making. It filters through into other areas. So I think spiritual rest can be really replenishing, but it does sometimes take a little bit of energy. So maybe think, do you feel spiritually nourished right now? Do you feel spiritually full, connected? Do you feel held by that mothering energy? Do you feel in a sense of trust for the way that your life is unfolding? And if you don't, maybe right now what you need is spiritual rest. So the next type of rest I want to talk about is social rest. So social rest is really giving yourself a rest from social interaction or really filling your cup with very positive and fulfilling relationships around you. It's really worth noting, I think, when it comes to this type of rest, where you are on the introvert-extrovert scale. So I used to be more of an extrovert. I'm now slightly more of an introvert. And I really notice that I get so much restoration from time alone. And that time alone is really important to me. But because of where I am on that scale, I can also feel really restored and replenished from time with other people when it's the right people. So I know after recording this, I'm going to be feeling quite physically tired, quite mentally tired, but I'm going to get really good social rest in that I'm actually having dinner with a friend. And right now, that's really what I need. I actually need dinner with a friend and a catch up and just have a chat and have a glass of wine and just like really feel that energy because they're a really good friend. I love being in their energy. I always feel really replenished after I've been around them. I really feel reminded that anything is possible. So that's going to be really replenishing. But at other times, what I actually need is just a little bit of time alone and a little bit of silence and a little bit of space just so I can get that social rest. When we get that social rest, I think we can really get back in tune with ourselves as well, get back in tune with our thoughts and get really clear what our outlook on life is. I think we're over socialized a lot as well through social media. We don't get as much social rest as we would have done. We would have previously written letters, for example, and known what was going on based on a letter that would take a while to write and a while to receive. And life just moved at this slower pace. We weren't as socially involved with other people. Whereas now we're seeing everyone's full lives on Instagram every minute of every day, or Facebook or TikTok or whatever tickles your fancy. And I think we're over socialized. So I think noting that and giving yourself a break from other people's lives, other people's dramas, other people's stuff, other people's energy, and just going back within, really reconnecting to yourself And also on that note, really noticing which relationships do feel restorative to you and spending a little bit more time with those people so you can really fill your cup. And then the last type of rest is the physical rest. And I spoke about this at the start, but really making sure that you're getting quality sleep, things like restorative yoga, restorative walks. Phoebe Greenacre has a yoga membership, which I used to love. I actually am thinking of re-signing up. I was a member before as a mother, lost all time to do any yin yoga. And now I feel like we're past a year and we're in routine and getting bits of life back. I really want to re-sign up because yin yoga, again, incredibly restorative, but not underestimating the value of that and listening to your body when it's tired. What your body might need sometimes when you're tired isn't a big workout. It might be rest. It might be an early night, and not fighting it. Really listening to those signs of physical rest that your body needs. So I know for me, this completely blew my mind when I found out about these different types of rest, and has really helped me see and ask myself, like, when I'm feeling tired, when I'm feeling depleted, really asking myself, what type of rest is it that I need right now? Looking at the different types of rest, looking at my life and saying, okay, actually, I'm feeling good on the physical rest, but I feel like I need spiritual rest, or I'm feeling really overstimulated. I actually need some sensory rest right now. And then cultivating experiences that will support that. I feel so much more replenished. I feel so much more whole. And I really hope this helps you too. So let me know. I love hearing from you guys about the podcast. Yes, writing reviews is so incredibly helpful, particularly now we're on Spotify as well, in terms of having the video on there. It's such an upgrade for us in itself. So please do write us a review, but also feel free to send me a DM. I love hearing your reflections on the episodes and what really spoke to you. And I want to hear how this lands for you. Which areas of rest are you going to be focusing on, and whether it leads to a greater sense of replenishment and nourishment as it did for me. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to share it with a friend. I love sharing podcast recommendations with my friend. Sending podcasts truly is a love language. Do that to one of your friends today. Make sure to share this episode. I'm sending you so much love, so much joy, and so much abundance. I'll see you next time.